Hi, everybody. My name's Johnnie, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm glad to be here this morning. I'm glad to be sober. I'm glad to be in a gathering of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to thank the committee or whoever's responsible for extending the privilege of me participating in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. My opinion, and I hope it always remains such, it is some type of a privilege to be allowed to come and sit in these rooms. I hope I don't ever get it through my sick head that I have a right to go everything that goes on in Alcoholics Anonymous just because I got sober and stayed that way. And the reason I tell you that is because everything that's good and decent in my life has come to me by the grace of the loving God I discovered sitting in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you're new or used or you're coming back, just sit down, enjoy yourself, and like my old sponsor used to say, take what you can use, kick the rest of it underneath the table, and just go to another meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I'm no wild stretch of the imagination, consultant, a counselor, or authority on a program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm an example, good, bad, or indifferent, that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous worked. That it hadn't been necessary for me to drink anything, swallow anything, smoke anything, or stick anything in my arm since sometime before the 4th day of November, 1959, which is a long time between drinks. Sometimes I think I'm so dry I'm a fire hazard, for Christ's sake. But that was not my intention when I stumbled into the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. If I'd have known where I was coming that day, I wouldn't have come. And if you'd have put a lie detector test on my arm as I wandered into that door that day and said, "Are you an alcoholic?" I'd have said, "No, I'm not." The needle wouldn't have moved because I didn't know what was troubling me. I was in a dilemma that I'd been in since I was a kid, and I didn't know how to get out of it, and I didn't know what was going on. Now, I'm extremely pleased to be here this morning, fully clothed and in my right mind. I'll tell you, the reason I say that is because a little over, Jesus, I'm almost afraid to tell you how long ago that was. You'll think I'm old or something. I don't know, 49, 50 years ago, somewhere along the line that I came to in a cell in solitary confinement in a maximum security penitentiary, drifting in and out of total sense. And I'd like to be able to stand here today and tell you that's where alcohol and drugs took me to. Oh, I'd love to be able to tell you that. See, that's where I took me to. The only thing that alcohol ever did in my life at all that kept me alive long enough to get to Alcoholics Anonymous. If I hadn't taken a drink of alcohol, I'd have blown my brains out before I was 9 years old. I've always been restless, irritable, and discontented. I was born needing some type of an answer. I didn't know what my problem was, so it's kind of hard to seek the answer to a problem if you don't know what the problem is. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't realize that I was suffering from an illness that has almost 4,000 years of recorded history about it. I didn't know that at all. I knew a lot about whiskey. Everybody in my family drank whiskey. They made it, and they drank it, and they did what people who do that kind of stuff do. They just gathered up on Saturday night and beat the hell out of one another. That's what they did. I mean, they were Irish. They didn't have any type of religion to hold their guilt down, so they just went crazy, them people. My uncles went to penitentiaries. My aunts worked in them whorehouse on the other side of the tracks. Mom got drunk and beat up Dad. Dad got drunk and beat up Mom. Every once in a while, they got together and beat me up. My reaction to that was, I'm just not going to drink. Man, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find something. So I guess early on in life, I was started my journey looking for a way out of this dilemma that I was in. But see, again and again and again, I don't know where to look because I don't know what's wrong with me. And there wasn't any Alcoholics Anonymous when I was a little kid. So I don't know what's going on. And so I looked up one day, saw my grandmother. Now, my grandmother lived till she was 90 years old, and she never took a drink of alcohol or smoked a cigarette in her life. My grandmother wouldn't think it's a big deal. I've been sober almost 48 years. Big deal. She'd say, I ain't had one for 90. I used to look at her and say, you should have a couple, Granny. Make you feel better from time to time. Make a little lighter in your step. My grandmother, God rest her soul, loved me beyond description. I can't ever stand here and tell you before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I've never loved. My grandmother loved me. I know that. My grandmother prayed for me every day of her life. My grandmother was the first symbol of any kind of decency that I ever saw in my life. My grandmother got up every Sunday morning and she put on the best thing she had, and she stepped across the bodies that were in her house, and she went somewhere, was gone for a couple of hours, and she came back. She was a little lighter in her step, but a little easier in her being. She danced around these people and cleaned them up and sang songs to Jesus. Now I look at that and I file that in my key and alcoholic mind. Now, if you're new here today, this is probably the only place in the world you're ever going to hear about the key and alcoholic mind. You ain't never going to Al-Anon and hear about the key and alcoholic mind. I'll guarantee you that. They don't talk about us over there too much. They might say things like, well, the alcoholic got up last night and peed in the linen closet. So, but they never tell you how smart we are. Ask us, we'll tell you how smart we are. We'll tell you about stuff we don't know a damn thing about. And we'll almost make you believe that we know something about it. That's if we can get our conversation in when somebody else is talking. So I was a little kid because I don't know better. I don't know what's ailing me. I had an idea that I should just go where my grandmother goes and do what my grandmother does. I'd be like my grandmother because I wanted to be like my grandmother. I wanted to be like my grandmother was when she came back from church. And so I went over and sit in my grandmother's church as a child, and I waited for whatever happened to Granny to happen to me, and I don't remember it happening, good or bad. But I do know what the problem was. The problem wasn't a problem with the church, and the problem wasn't any problem with my grandmother. The problem wasn't any problem with my parents. It wasn't with the alcohol they drank. The problem was with the jackass who was sitting in the church, me. You see, what I was doing in that church is what I did all my life prior to coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. Probably a long time after I was here, could be a long time, quite a bit of time. Today, I don't really have a handle on it. I'm looking for something way out here to make me feel better in here. And that always goes to prove to me that the problem's always been there. I sit down on the back porch of my grandfather's house one day with my grandfather watching my grandpa drink whiskey out of a fruit jar. In Kentucky, you ought to understand about whiskey out of a fruit jar. And he set it down and went somewhere, and I picked it up and took a drink of it. That's all I did. It wasn't any thought. I didn't think, oh, this is evil, this is bad, I'm going to turn out like my parents. I just took it. And probably according to our manuscript, Alcoholics Anonymous, the next couple of minutes of my life is what makes me an alcoholic anyhow. See, I'm not an alcoholic because I spent the next 20 years of my life creating mayhem out in the world. I'm an alcoholic because I have some type of an abnormal reaction to alcohol. Now, it wasn't a bad reaction, I'll tell you that. If it had been a bad reaction, you'd have another speaker here this morning. I get tired of people saying, I take a drink of whiskey and snot ran out of my nose and gag me and all that. I want to slap them. I mean, that's like talking bad about an old girlfriend or something, you know what I mean? Alcohol's the best friend I ever had, for Christ's sake. All I can tell you is it went down inside of me and kind of stilled the madness that was in there. I got this abnormal reaction to this alcohol that maybe 1 out of 10 people who drink it do. I didn't understand that. But you see, that's not the thing that took me into insanity and death and beyond. What got me is what happens to alcoholics of my type once I take a drink. See, once I take a drink of alcohol, then and only then am I drinking to overcome a craving that's beyond all human understanding and beyond all help. I didn't know that. Because I took a drink, and then the drink took a drink, and then the drink took me. And 3 days later, they pulled me out from underneath a bridge and stood me in front of a judge and sent me to Hutchins State Reform School. 20 years later, I took a drink of alcohol. They pulled me out of a car in Compton and stood me in front of a judge and sent me to 20 years in the penitentiary. Now, that's what happened to me when I drank. I got drunk and went places. I could travel around it. I went from reform school to junior penitentiaries to nut houses. Now they call them treatment centers. I'm a little more partial to nut house, if you want to know the truth. It's a little more macho. Come on, for Christ's sake. If you're going to be bad, you ought to be bad. I mean, don't quit drinking because you puke a little. Hang in there. Yeah. Alcoholics Anonymous works a hell of a lot better when you run out of options. I threw everything into the battle and lost the battle. I didn't know what I was fighting. It was kicking my tail, but I didn't know because I walked out of institutions from the time I was 9 or 10 years old till I was 30, as physically sober as I am this morning. And not one time did I ever say to myself, self, do you realize how long it's been since you've had a series of those electroshock treatments? Why don't you have a drink? Why don't you have a drink of alcohol and go out there and kill your baby brother? Why don't you have a drink of alcohol and go out there and tear your mother's heart out one more time? Why don't you have a drink of alcohol and grab some street corners and join those gangs, commit them atrocities out there in the street corners? Why don't you do that, Johnny? No. See, an alcoholic of my type does not take a drink of alcohol after being sober for a period of time. We don't do it to go have a party. We don't do it to get out of it. We want to get into it, whatever it is. We drink a drink of alcohol after being sober for a period of time just to go. But you see, that's all it takes. Because then I'm powerless not to take the next drink, and the next drink, and the next drink, and the next drink, and the next drink. 10 or 11 years old, I'm on a furlough from a reform school, sitting on the street corner in my neighborhood around my little gang. And we're drinking some cheap. See, I'm a very unique individual. I want to share that with you. I started on cheap wine and worked down. And that ain't easy. But here I am sitting on this street corner drinking this cheap stuff. And a guy tapped me on the shoulder and said, you ought to try these. And he gave me some pills. Now, I didn't say to him, what are those? Will they bother me if I take? I just, thank God they weren't X-Lax. That's all I can tell you. All I can tell you is they worked. That's all. It's like lighting the afterburners on a rocket ship. Only my rocket ship never took me up anywhere. It took me straight to hell. And if your hell's any hotter than where I've ever been, I pray to God I don't ever get there. Because 2 or 3 years later, I'm on that same street corner on a furlough from another reform school, and a guy stuck a needle in my arm. And for the next 14 years of my life, I stuffed needles in my arm, ran in and out of institutions. That's what I do. I live out in the streets, and I do what people like me who live in the streets do. I destroy everything that comes in contact with me. I'm like a plant, and there's a reason for that. I'm a taker. I'm a taker of things, and I'm a user of people, so therefore I'm a loser. I'm selfish. I'm self-centered. I'm self-serving. I got an ego bigger than this whole building. My entire lifetime was spent before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and for a long time after I was here, without a conscious thought or a conscious concern for any other human being who lives upon the face of this earth. I didn't want anything. If you had anything and I got it, I cast it aside like so much trash and I went on about my business. That's the way I live my life. I didn't live my life like that one day or 1 week until I got a court card. I lived my life like that from my earliest recollection of life until a long time after I was an Alcoholics Anonymous. And at the ripe old age of 26, 27 years old, somewhere around there, I came to in a cell in solitary confinement at a maximum security penitentiary, drifting in and out of total insanity. And what's significant about that to me today is that when I came to that day, there wasn't a single solitary soul left upon the face of this earth that would send me a penny postcard. They were all gone. But you know what? They should be gone. I don't have any right to have any of those things back in my life just because I got sober. Everything that's good and decent in my life is a gift, direct gift from this God I discovered sitting in meetings of Alcoholics Now. Not because I'm entitled to it, not because I have any right to it. If I had any right to it, I'd have to start defending it. And my book says I'm supposed to quit fighting anything or anybody. That's what stumbled into your meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous on the 4th day of November, 1959. I didn't come here to get sober. I came to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous because the institution I was in let women come in there. I came to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous on a Sunday morning to smell perfume. I've been honking and sniffing around her ever since. It doesn't make any difference why you get here. Just get here. Now, I didn't know what I wandered into. That may have been the attraction that brought me to Alcoholics Anonymous, but that's not what got me to Alcoholics Anonymous. You see, I've been sober a long time, and I've had an opportunity to go back and look at the causes and conditions not only of my dilemma, but of my recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. You see, my last time out, I killed me for all intents and purposes, because I had 2 years of doing to me anything I wanted to do to me for as long as I wanted to do it with as much money as I needed to do it with. And I'm the most classic example of self-will run riot and selfish and self-centeredness you'll ever want to meet in your entire life. I ended up strapped down on a bed in the old Los Angeles County Jail, 128 pounds, with a doctor standing at the foot of my bed telling me I'm going to die. That was his message to me that morning. Son, you're going to die, and there's nothing we can do for you. That did not seem like a bad idea to me. You see, I didn't want to go on doing all the things that I had been doing. I never wanted to ever have to look into my mother's face again and see that terrified look in her eye, the things that I saw standing handcuffed up between those two detectives at gravesite that day. I never want to go see the fear and terror in somebody's eyes as I'm about to do something to them that they know I'm going to do and they don't want me to do it. I never want to ever have to look at that thing anymore. I never want to have to maintain and carry this sick image of mine around with me anymore. It's getting awful heavy for me to carry. I never want to have those things happen to me ever again. And I don't know not how to do it. And I know that I'm going to have to do it again if I get up off that bed. I know I'm going to have to go back to that lifestyle. I know I'm going to have to go back to the gangs. I know I'm going to have to go to the penitentiary. I know I'm going to have to get out of there. I'm going to have to do all those things. I'm going to come out and I'm going to repeat those actions over and over and over again. And I know it because I'm lost and I'm hopeless and I know there's no answer for the solution for this thing that's got me. Because I don't know what's got me. I just think I'm born corrupt. I came from them corrupt people, and I'm just another black sheep in the family. And I'm doomed to die out there in them streets or in one of them penitentiaries somewhere. So death seemed like a good idea because the struggle is almost too much anymore. So I laid in that bed for a period of time. Every day the doctor jumped back into the room, his little white coat and his little pad, said the same thing, wrote something on the pad, left. And after a period of time, the idea came to me that I was going to live and not die. That I was going to get by the bed, go to the penitentiary, and come back out and start that rat race all over again. God knows I didn't want to do that. So one night, out of the clear blue sky and the dark of night, I screamed out the only prayer I ever said in my life. I said, "Oh, God, help me." Now, there was no blinding flash of light. Nobody come running down the hall with a dozen donuts saying, "We got an AA meeting down there." I went to sleep. I don't know how I'm ever kicked a 2-year heroin habit, but that's what I was doing. That's the first time I've been asleep in a long, long time. I'll tell you how sick I was. 2 weeks later, I'm up running around the jail looking for some more of the poison to put me back in the bed I just gotten off of. It's a good reason for that. In the back of my head today, just like it was then, I know what makes the big hurt go away. I know. I just know it. If you put me in the wrong place at the wrong time in the wrong set of circumstances, I'm going to be drunk. I'm an alcoholic. I don't have any more choice about that than I do about flying around this room. So I got luck. You know, my little grandmother, who I told you who adored me, who I was sure loved me more than anything, prayed for me every day of her life. The last time I saw my grandmother, I was tied down on a bed in Manager's Clinic in Topeka, Kansas. And my grandmother was kneeling at my bed, crying and praying for me again. I'm not trying to stand here and trying to tell you my grandmother's prayers didn't keep me out of harm's way from time to time, because I've been in a lot of harm's way. But I can tell you this without a shadow of a doubt, because of my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. It wasn't until I asked God for help that I could ever possibly get it. And I had to separate what was ever between me and God to get that help. Because I can see the pathway from that prayer and that deathbed of mine in the county jail to that meeting in that penitentiary on a Sunday morning in November 1959. And I wandered into that meeting and I sat down in the back row. And the reason I sit in the back row is because that's where people like me sit. I don't know what this thing is. I'm probably just looking for another group of people to hate because I'd run out of people to hate. And I sit there in the back row. I looked up on the backboard. I saw two big A's, and I thought to myself, my God, I wandered into an anti-aircraft game. I don't know what Alcoholics Anonymous is. I said to the guy sitting next to me, I said, what is this? He said, it's Alcoholics Anonymous. He said it loud. I sunk down in my seat. I didn't see the big gangster hanging out with them winos. But you talk about arrogance. If it had been said, Gangbangers Anonymous, Overhip Anonymous, or Dope Fiend Anonymous. Oh, you can get into that dope fiend, can't you? Dope fiend. Makes addicts seem a little candy-ass to me. Remember, if you're going to be bad, you got to be bad. So there I sit that day, and if you're new, I remember that day like it was yesterday. And here's what was happening to me. I'm sitting there staring at an answer that I had sold my soul for. But I don't recognize the answer because I don't know what my problem is. Over and over and over again, if I could leave you with anything at all today, it's hard to seek the answer to a problem if you don't know what your problem is. And I didn't have a clue. I'm fascinated by these people. I could not figure out what in the hell is wrong with these people. They get up on Sunday morning, they leave their families, they leave everything, they drive 100 miles up those old back roads, and they spend 2 hours talking to a room full of people who don't want to listen to them. People like me who sit in the back row and made fun of them. It took me a long time to realize how very sick that was. Here I am sitting in the penitentiary. I don't know when I'm going home, and I'm making fun of people who are leaving in an hour. That keen alcoholic mind at work. And so I don't know any better. See, the reason I don't understand people is the reason a lot of newcomers don't understand Alcoholics Anonymous. For the first time in my life, I'm looking at people who are given a little just for the hell of giving it. And see, people like me, takers, don't hang out with givers. We hang out with takers. That's why we're all losers. Because if you're a taker and you're hanging out with takers who takers hang out with, you're going to have to keep moving from time to time because you keep taking from everybody and they finally just have to move on to another one. And all takers are losers. I didn't understand what these people are doing. My grandmother was one. I didn't understand that either. But that's what attracted me to my grandmother. That's what attracted me to these people. I couldn't figure out what do they get out of this thing. You got to get something out of it. You don't do something for nothing. What's the payoff here? How would I know? How would I know? I asked the guy one day, what do you get out of coming up here anyhow? You some type of a sicko? You like to look at the animals in the cages? What's your deal anyhow? He looked at me and gave me one of them deep AA answers. You know, the ones that just kind of, he said, well, son, when you can answer that question, you won't have to ask it. You know, I pondered that for months. That's almost too simple for an intellectual giant like me with brain damage, right? But you know what I've understood? The reason I don't understand it is because I'm a taker. Takers don't understand questions like that. What I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous is a very simple thing. I'm going to tell you a fact that I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, my experience of sitting in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous 4 or 5 times a week for all these many years, without a drink or any type of mood-altering chemical in my system. My old sponsor, Norm Alpe, when he was alive, used to talk about crossing over an invisible line from controlled to uncontrolled drinking. I don't have any qualm with that at all. But I'm here to tell you this morning, there's an invisible line in Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you're an alcoholic of my type and you don't cross over, you're going to die drunk, or you're going to go insane, or you're going to blow your brains out. And that's a line where you got to cross over from being a taker to being a giver. And you're going to have to learn to give a little just for the hell of giving and expecting nothing in return, not even to stay sober. It's the most amazing thing that I know. And I did not know that. What's happened to me was a very simple thing. A man wandered into that penitentiary one day on a panel that I knew did 23 flat years in the penitentiary. His name was Les Hamlin. He's dead now. And he told me something that all the great psychiatrists and therapists and the penologists never knew. He looked down where I was sitting that morning and he said these simple words. He said, "You don't have to live like this no more if you don't want to. You don't have to do it like this no more." Nobody had ever told me that. They told me all my life not to drink, swallow, smoke, and shoot, but they never told me anything other than just don't do it. How many times I sit across the table or across the desk from a psychiatrist or a sociologist or a criminologist or a lawyer or a teacher, and they've said to me, "Johnny, if you didn't drink these things and swallow these things and smoke these things and shoot these things, you wouldn't have any problems." But what none of them ever took into consideration, every time they told me that, I was as physically as I am right now. How many times I wanted to scream out, and good God, doctor, don't you understand? Because they don't. I'm sorry. If you're not alcoholic, you'll never understand why I drink. But if you're not alcoholic, I'll never understand why you don't. Have you ever listened to them? You know who they are, don't you? They're the reason we're in here. They say things like, my older brother used to say this to me. I just try to get him drunk, just to get him off my case. He'd say things like, "Oh, no thanks, I'm starting to feel it." What? The last time I ever tried to do that with him, you know what he told me? "Oh, I just got paid, I'm going home." Well, not me. You give me 2 drinks, we're all going to Mexico. I wandered up this little man that day, and I asked him very sincerely. I didn't know what I was asking him or why I was asking him. I know today. I want to know, how do you live? That's all I want to know. I wasn't interested in staying sober from that day to this day and enjoying this good life of mine, not at all. I was interested in, how do you lay down and go to sleep at night without anything in your system, without waking up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in cold sweats with the nightmares of those atrocities that you quit. See, the picture that always plagued me all my life was, from 1951 until that very day, was a picture of my mother sitting at my baby brother's gravesite, looking at me with that hate in her eyes while I stood handcuffed underneath a tree with 2 detectives. That drove me crazy. It drove me insane one time when I realized what had happened to me. And I didn't know how to do that. He said to me a very simple thing that seems to be lost in the translation of Alcoholics Anonymous today in some places. He said, "Johnny, there's a book called Alcoholics Anonymous in the library. If you go get that book, I'll go home and pray that you find some part of you in it." I guess he's prayed real hard, that little fella. I've been a student of our book, Alcoholics Anonymous, from that day to this day. And the only thing I've ever found in that book is me. See, I'm not looking for anything else. I'm not looking for a way to sober up the world or cure all society's ill. I'm only looking for a way to live peacefully and comfortably and joyously with me and you and God. Now, the strange thing that happens to me and the phenomenon that happens to me in my life, it seems like that the closer I adhere to what's written in this book, and the more willing I become to share that knowledge in this fellowship, just for the sheer joy of doing it, the more peaceful and the more comfortable and the more joyous I live with me and the loving God of me. I went into the book Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't go into the book Alcoholics Anonymous to get sober, stay sober, live this good life. I went in to prove to you that my case was different, that it was not going to work for me. The loser's theme song in Alcoholics. You don't seem to understand. My case is different. The theme song of the losers, and my case is different. I don't have to do it that way. Well, I started to read our book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I got into a doctor's opinion. I found a strange thing in there. I discovered a thing called the phenomenon of craving. And prior to discovering the phenomenon of craving, it was never my fault. Ever. Why I didn't go to university to play baseball, why I didn't play baseball in a major league baseball team, and why I didn't do all the things that I was cut out to do and had the opportunity to do. Even while confined in institutions, I was offered these things. And I always thought it was because I came out of them ghettos, and I came out of them gangs, and I came out of them institutions, I came from them drunk people in Kansas, and I came from them bootleggers and them whores and all that kind of stuff. I thought that's the reason I could never make it. And when I read that and got a grip on why, I found out that the reason none of that ever happened to me is I just took a drink. And then the drink took a drink, and then the drink took me. It's the most amazing thing that I know of. And in our book, Alcoholics Anonymous, I found out the identification with the guy who wrote our book was not because he was a New York stockbroker and I'm a street kid. My identification with Bill Wilson was what he was like when he was sober without drinking. I had fear, remorse, and guilt, loneliness were my constant companions all the time. Every time I woke up in a straitjacket, every time I woke up in a cell, every time I woke up strapped down on a bed somewhere, every time I was in some Lincoln Heights jailhouse, staying from a courtroom, those were my constant companions. And all it did was solidify the idea that there was something basically wrong with me. And then I went and took an inventory, and I sat with a man one day, and I heard myself say to the man that I was an alcoholic. And way down deep inside of me, there came a freedom that I carry with me at this very instant. I've had it inside of me for almost 47 years now. I know exactly what's wrong with me as I stand here this morning. Exactly. You see, I'm an alcoholic, and I suffer from an illness called alcoholism. I'm not an alcoholic and anything. When I was an alcoholic and something or other, I couldn't have our program. And the reason I couldn't have it is I separated me from you. I'm a little better than you. I'm a little slicker than you. I'm a little hipper than you. I'm a little dumber than you, a little richer than you. I am not like you. When I came just like you, or like the people who wrote our book, it became my great privilege to be allowed to practice the only program of recovery for alcoholics of my type, 4,000 years of recorded history. It blows my mind because I just get to do it. I don't have to. I get to do it. I get to practice this magnificent program of recovery called Alcoholics Anonymous. I get to go to meetings. I get to do things in meetings. I get to go back to the institutions that I came out of. I get to see the beds I used to sleep in, mess halls I used to eat in. I get to see the guys I used to run with and play ball with in those institutions. I get to walk across the ball diamond. I get to shake hands with the wardens. I get to do all those kind of things. Not because I'm anything special in God's eyes. It's because I've understood what a tremendous privilege this is. Just to come and sit here. Not to do anything. When I walked out of that penitentiary, I had a dream that maybe someday you'd let me come and sit in your meeting. I never thought in my wildest imaginations you'd let me do anything. I thought maybe you'd have a place like that balcony up there with a screen to keep me away from you. I didn't think you'd let me sit near useless people, but I said to myself, if they will give me the privilege of coming and sitting in their meetings, I'll do anything they ask me to do. I'm very pleased to be able to tell you that for over 46 years of my life, I have done whatever it is that Alcoholics Anonymous has asked me to do. Sometimes grudgingly, sometimes haphazardly, but I've always done it. And you know what? I'm always better for doing it. Not that I'm any better, but I always feel better for doing it. It's the most amazing thing that I know. I went on to see my mother the day I came out of the penitentiary. She fell off the steps blind drunk. I picked her up, put her on a couch, and said, Mom, I'm going to an AA meeting. She said, fine, I think you should. I'd like to stand here and tell you I got sober, and my mother got sober, and my dog got sober, and my cat got sober, and we're the sobers. That's not my experience. I can't talk to you beyond my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not full of theories and intellectual mumble jumble. I can talk to you about my experience. My mother drank herself to death. I had a ringside seat watching my mother drink herself to death in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, she used to come in and out of meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. My mother was the type of drinker that she would have to drink herself sober. But she could only stay sober for so long, like all alcoholics, until the restlessness and the irritability and the discontent got so bad that then she took a drink. I was the last thing in this world my mother ever saw. I saw my mother leave this world. My mother still had the hate at me in her eyes when she died that day that she had sitting at the cemetery while we buried my baby brother. My mother lived with that hate in her eyes from 1951 till 1980-something when she died. But you know what? I loved my mother. I did everything I could for my mother the last year she lived. Even though she refused it and she tossed me aside and she cursed me when she was drinking, blamed me when she was drinking. Because of people like you in rooms like this, and my sponsor, Norm, I went and took care of my mother when she needed me the most. I wasn't looking for any thanks, for any gratitude, any pats on the head. I was just doing it because by doing it, I was trying to pay back a little. My old Papa Chuck used to say, I'm going to spend the rest of my life just wiping out a record. And that's what I've done in Alcoholics Anonymous in the last 40-some years of my life. I've just been trying to wipe out a record. And you know what? It's a job I'll never get done. Because I'm a basic human being. About the time I get the slate clean, I dirty it up on the other side of the lake. You know, I don't understand it. It's my selfishness and self-centeredness, I suppose. But I walked in the meeting one day, and a guy became my sponsor, a guy by the name of Norm Alpe, walked up to me and said, I'm going to be your sponsor. And I didn't know what a sponsor was, because I'm like a lot of people who are a student in the book but know nothing about our fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, I'm going to help you get things done that need to be done, Johnny. I said, okay, then what do you want me to do, Norm? He said, why do you ask me? I said, for Christ's sake, you just told me you were going to be my sponsor, no? He said, Johnny, if I can't run my life, what makes you think I can run yours? I said, then what am I supposed to do? He said, why don't you just do what I do? I said, what is it you do? He said, well, if you do what I do, then you'll know what I do. He just broke up the great mystery of sponsorship to me. The first thing he said to me was, why don't you get a job and go to work? You're a bum. I said, I'm not a bum. He said, what are you? I'm an AA member. He said, no, you're an AA bum. Bums don't work. He said, get off of welfare. I almost hit him. And I had never been on welfare, Norm Alpe. Don't you ever say that to me again. I'm going to smack you. He said, what do you call living in penitentiaries, Johnny? Self-supporting through your own contribution? I went to work, got a job. You know, somebody stole my first paycheck. You want to hear somebody scream? You listen to a thief when they get stolen from. I ranted and raved and jumped and hollered. If I'd have caught that guy, you'd have another topper here today. I'd have been up there in Folsom somewhere playing handball saying, hey, it don't work. That's what they tell you. You know that? The losers. Hey, it don't work. How the hell would you know? I'm here to tell you it does work. And the reason I can tell you I know it works is because I haven't had a drink of alcohol or a multi pill in my system since sometime before the 4th day of November, 1959. And I live a life that is hard for you to understand if you haven't lived it. It's the most amazing thing that I know of is how I can lay down at night and sleep all night long. That's the most amazing thing that I know of. How I can wake up in the morning and know that there's a God in the world looking after me. If I can lay down alongside of somebody at night, and wife and the woman I married, and know that I love her more than anything in the world, even though I'm not capable of not hurting her from time to time. I know that. You've taught me that. I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous with any kind of attributes like that. I never mentioned the word love to a single human being prior to coming to Alcoholics Anonymous or for a long time after I was here. You taught me that. I thought that was weakness. I thought if I told you I loved you, you were going to use me. I didn't say it to my mother. I didn't say it to anybody. But I can stand here and tell you right now that I love the people of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the reason I love the people of Alcoholics Anonymous is because I'm the byproduct of our magnificent program to recover. Not the poster child, not the great I am. I am just a product of our fellowship and our program of recovery called Alcoholics Anonymous. And the kind, firm, loving hands of people who have loved me, willing to save my life instead of trying to hurt my feelings. They weren't worried about my pain. My sponsor, Norm Alpe, never did care about my spirits. He never cared about my feelings whatsoever. He was only interested in saving my life. He knew that an egotistical, tongue-chewing, babbling idiot like me needed to be told certain things, how to behave around other people, how to behave in Alcoholics Anonymous, how to do things in Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh, I knew how to live comfortably by the program of recovery, but my sponsor served only one purpose: how to behave around you, how to say yes to things I don't know how to do or don't want to do. You know, how to go in and be a part of a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous instead of just a guest and a visitor there. How to go there and contribute something to AA instead of sitting around and suck the life out of with some type of entitlement because you're not drinking anymore. That's what my sponsor told me. You're not entitled to a damn thing around here, Johnny. I used to get mad at him. I said, I'm sober, man. You don't understand. I'm going to a couple, 3 meetings a week. He says, you ain't doing nothing in them meetings. I said, I'm going there and staying sober. He said, you didn't get it through your head. You ain't doing nothing in them meetings. I says, what am I supposed to do? He said, get a little job. Earn your seat. Look like you're sober. Act like you're sober. Act like you're good. Go shake hands with a newcomer. I don't like newcomers. Why don't you like them? I don't know. Well, you don't like them because they're probably doing better than you are. Oh, he's cruel. He's the best friend I ever had. He'd been dead since 1983, and there's a day of my life I don't think about him and miss him. It's amazing to me. I've got everything in the world that a man could possibly ever want. Really, I got a home, I got a lovely wife I adore, I've got a host of friends all over the world, I've got children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, I got a little job that keeps me off the streets, I got meetings to go to, and I got people who love me, who I love beyond description. Everything in the world. But yet, the two people who are the most important in my life prior to coming to Alcoholics Anonymous are just memories. My sponsor, Norm Alpe, my Papa Chuck. What they taught me, I listen to every day in my life, and I miss them terribly. If I had one wish or one hope for you, if you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, I would only wish this. I would only wish that maybe you could find a Chuck Chamberlain or a Norm Alpe in your life to love and adore like I love those people. I love those people unconditionally. I guess Papa Chuck was the first person in my life I ever loved unconditionally. No matter what he did, when he showed me his humanness, I loved him. No matter what Norm Alpe did, when he showed me his humanness, I loved him too. And I miss him every day. I'm like, well, yeah, I've got another sponsor. I can't run my own life, so I need somebody to kind of guide me through life, to take care of the rough edges and smooth them down. When I get my egotism and my self-centeredness is going in full bloom, I need somebody to go talk to give me some direction, to take care of this thing, somebody with some experience. That's why I need a sponsor. I don't need a sponsor to take me through the steps or to wash my butt or to tell me how to dress or to do anything or how to get up in the morning. I just need somebody to go sit down and counsel with me when my head is directing me in the wrong direction. That's what I have. But there isn't a day goes by in my life And I hope it never does until the day they pat me in the face with a scoop. That I don't think about them two magnificent men in my life who made me exactly what I am today. Just an imperfect human being who loves Alcoholics Anonymous and his people. They taught me the love of Alcoholics Anonymous, and my Papa Chuck taught me the love that you made. He used to say to me all the time, son, if I could spell out Alcoholics Anonymous to you, I spelled it out in 4 words. I'd say, how's that, Papa? He said, it's L-O-V. We love one another here. If you're new, we only wish you well. We don't wish you any harm. We only want you to have what we found here, if we found anything. We want you to have a quiet heart and a peacefulness inside it. We want you to have a God of your very own. We want you to discover the love of other human beings in your life. We want you to understand the great privilege it is to be of service to Alcoholics Anonymous and to its people. That's all we want for you. We don't want for you to be anything else. We just want for you to have whatever it is that we've been given. That's what I've been given. I've been given the love of people. I've been given a God of my very own. I've been given a peacefulness and a sereneness inside of me most of the time that's hard for me to describe to a practicing alcoholic or somebody who's new in AA. But I can tell you this. It's not because I'm anything special in God's eye. I'm just one of God's kids. That's all. You see, I believe what my Papa Chuck told me, we're all God's kids. If one of us is, we all are. And if one of us isn't, none of us are. And so, all I can tell you, if you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, come to Alcoholics Anonymous. Jump into this thing with both feet. Get into our program of recovery. Embellish yourself in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. The book has it to me is come and join us and instruct this happy road of destiny. I just want to thank you again for allowing my lovely wife, Karen, to bring her back home to you, where you nurtured her and got her ready for me. I'm telling you, that's a job all in its own, thanks, Jeannie. You know, because I get to come back and be around people I love and spend 4 or 5 days. And if I had any wish in any other place to go in this world to live, it would be right here with you. Thank you very much.